Hello, everybody, and welcome to this workshop on workforce development through apprenticeships. Thanks very much for having us at the British Canoeing Delivery Partner Conference. We're delighted to be presenting. It's a new one for us to do a pre-recorded webinar. Normally I'm talking to the screen and there are some people to talk to, but we've done this by tagging together a series of Zoom meetings, some PowerPoints, some interviews, and so on. So hopefully it'll be fun and engaging and you'll get the information that you need. Quick introduction from me, and I'll introduce some others as we go through the presentation. I'm Jim Whitaker, I'm the Managing Director at Channel Training. I'm going to start the PowerPoint now, and we'll flick back and forth. I don't want to spend too much time on slides, but we do have some slides to guide us. So here we go. So the aim of what we're trying to achieve here today is for delegates to gain a greater understanding of the apprenticeships that are available in our sector, what kind of impact they can have on your organisation, and for you to understand some perspectives from employers and apprentices and ourselves as one of the training providers in the sector that deliver these apprenticeships. We have contributions from lots of folk, apart from me, which I'm sure you'll be glad to hear. We have Chloe Kinsella, who's our lead tutor. We have Pete Organ, who's our lead trainer. We have guest appearances from Dave Squire, who's the CEO at Blackwell Adventure, Emma Kendall, who's a Field Studies Council apprentice, and Sam Waits, who's the centre manager at Mountbatten Water Sports and Activity Centre in Plymouth. We have you, the delegates, and uniquely, because this is a pre-recorded presentation, we've got the ability to have a really free-flowing dialogue through the chat function. We're here to respond to comments, answer your questions, so that's really exciting. So do please use the chat function, and yeah, should be great. So just a tiny bit about us. We're from Channel Training, but this presentation isn't really about Channel Training. It's about apprenticeships. We utterly believe in apprenticeships. We've been doing apprenticeships for the outdoor sector for over a decade now, and many of us for longer than that. So we completely believe in them. And the ethos behind what we do and the details of what we do and how we do it can be found on our website. So that's why I've shared the home screen with you there. Do look us up. We've got huge amounts of information, as you can imagine, for those who want to start the apprenticeship journey with us, and this isn't the place to share that, but it's all there. So if your interest is piqued by this presentation and you'd like to find out more, then get in touch with us. We can send over lots of information packs, loads of materials, and answer all of your questions in detail, specific to your particular setting. So do get in touch for all that stuff if you're interested. Okay, in this next section, we're going to start to look at the apprenticeship standards that are available in our sector. Just before we do that, it occurs to us that we could do with addressing the apprenticeship standards and apprenticeship frameworks issue that quite understandably still exists. Many people watching this will still be familiar with NVQs and why are they no more, and with apprenticeship frameworks that were available in our sector, like activity leadership and outdoor programs and so on. So I've just made a short video to address that so that we can understand where we are now with apprenticeships and why, and then we'll get onto the meat of the apprenticeships that are available to us. So a slight change of scene. Apologies for any background noise, it's pouring down with rain outside. Apprenticeship frameworks to apprenticeship standards. That's the purpose of this little snippet video. In 2012, the government commissioned the Richard Review, which looked at apprenticeship provision on the back of the Wolf Review, which was looking at vocational education more broadly. And long story short, the Richard Review showed that apprenticeship provision was largely further education focused. A central MVQ had bolt-on knowledge qualifications, and many of these qualifications were just related to work, in our case, in our sector, but not necessarily fit for purpose as far as employers were concerned. And apprenticeships were traditionally viewed as an opportunity for young people to travel to college, spend a day a week at college, and then the rest of the week in the workplace. The Richard Review said that didn't really work for employers, so things needed to change. His recommendations were that there's an overhaul of the apprenticeship system, and that sectors should be allowed to develop apprenticeships that are fit for them and their employers, and that they shouldn't be focused on a bunch of FE qualifications. So that's what happened, and come 2015 apprenticeship reform started, and there was a couple of years where frameworks began to disappear and the funding disappeared with it, which was a real challenge for those of us who tried to stay in the business. And standards were encouraged to be produced by sectors developing trailblazer groups. Thankfully, in our sector, the Institute for Outdoor Learning took that role on, and many thanks to the work of the chair, Mark Levington, and Neil Anderson specifically, and many employers that were involved with that, standards were developed. So the key difference between a framework that was and a standard is that a framework had an NVQ sat at the middle, a national vocational qualification that many of us are familiar with, and apprenticeship standards don't. In fact, apprenticeship standards don't have any mandatory qualifications sitting in them. That was one of the key points. Apprenticeship standards lay out knowledge, skills and behaviours that an individual in that role should be able to exhibit. And the assessment, unlike frameworks, isn't done throughout the period of the apprenticeship, it's done at the end with an independent endpoint assessment. This was viewed as important in the Richard Review for several reasons. First of all, the training provider has a vested interest in everybody passing the apprenticeship, hence the independence of the independent endpoint assessment. But also, whilst the process of summative assessment throughout an apprenticeship framework is useful, it was mainly useful because it provided an ongoing feedback loop for those individuals. That should be in place anyway. And in actual fact, what happens with an on-programme assessment, as was the case with MVQs, is that assessors would simply tick off chunks of criteria whenever they did an observation. It was the only way you could do it. But that didn't mean that. What it essentially said to apprentices in learning was, you've now done that, you've been assessed on it, you don't need to think about it or continue developing it anymore. Let's just get through these chunks of criteria and then you'll have your MVQ. Rather than building a holistic model of competence, and that's what the apprenticeship standard does. It says, we're going to develop all the way through, and right at the end, there'll be an objective measure of whether you can do the job or not. And in some cases, how well. So, for example, with our sector, there's a pass and a distinction with the outdoor activity instructor standard and the outdoor learning specialist standard. So that's essentially it. How do national governing body qualifications and personal skills and coaching skills fit into this? Well, better than with frameworks. With frameworks, it was very difficult to weave personal skills in unless you were lucky to find a BTEC or a knowledge qualification, as we call them, where personal skills could be involved. It was very difficult to weave the personal skill development for an instructor into an MVQ. But with standards it's better, because with standards the knowledge, skills and behaviours are laid out such that an individual needs to be competent in order to instruct a particular activity. And of course, it's pretty obvious to everybody watching this, but our sector in many ways is unique in that individuals who are learning to be instructors aren't just learning how to paddle a kayak, for example. They're learning how to paddle a kayak and then how to teach others how to paddle a kayak. Now that's a really crucial thing to remember all the way through what we do, in that we're layering up these skills here, and nevertheless the personal skill development is the foundation of that. So we can use the established national governing body training pathways and routes to competence within a standard so that an individual can reach the required standard to do their day job at the centre that they're working at. And the way we do that is by negotiating with the employers to ensure that the skills packages we can deliver and that they deliver in terms of on-the-job training allow apprentices to progress to that position of competence in their role. So standards, miles better than frameworks, and we're delighted to be delivering them right now. 3 years for the outdoor activity instructor. It's norming. People are doing very well. The pass rates are excellent. The distinction rates are excellent. And so hooray for the written review. That's my view. Okay, I hope that was a useful distraction from the PowerPoint and from me sitting in front of a screen. Let's look at the standards now that we've got, which are great. I'm going to just run the PowerPoint and we'll go from there. So in our world right now, we have those standards. The level 3 outdoor activity instructor, first up from 2018, now doing incredibly well. It's offered by many training providers, and it's very high quality standard. The key bit, as you saw in the little video, is that we're more free to engage with employers and decide exactly how to deliver the apprenticeship knowledge, skills and behaviours and make it fit with that particular organisation, what that organisation does, its venues, its staffing structure, and its professional development aspirations. Chloe and Pete will deal more with how that program design takes place, but that's what we've got with the standard, which is superb. The next level up is the outdoor learning specialist at level 5. That's brand new, only approved in February this year. So we've got a few starts on there, and it's a really exciting time in our sector because it's the highest level apprenticeship that we've ever had, and it properly levels the next step up in the career path for somebody working in outdoor education. So the outdoor learning specialist allows specialisms in terms of population or specialisms in terms of occupation, and it's foundation degree level learning. So it's a very powerful tool. So a little bit more about that later. And finally on the list there, you'll see the level 2 community activator coach. That's an apprenticeship that isn't designed specifically for our sector, but in the absence of a level 2 outdoor specific assistant, centre assistant level apprenticeship, it's incredibly useful. And actually, the community element employers find to be a real help in shaping how they engage with the community around them, and the work that they do. So although it's an entry level to the sector at an assistant level, what it means is that there's a very broad base of engagement available to apprentices following that standard that provides an incredible foundation for progression onto level 3 and level 5. So we use it to great success for the individuals that it's right for. I've put the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education logo there just to flag the fact that all the details of these standards can be found just by Googling the name of the standard and following the link that will come up on Google for the Institute of Apprenticeships and Technical Education, and all the knowledge, skills and behaviours and details about the apprenticeship standards when it was approved, the Trailblazer group that designed it, all of that stuff is there on the Institute website. So do have a look. Just before we move on to looking at the level 3 outdoor activity instructor standard and the level 5 outdoor learning specialist, I've got a little interview that I did with Dave Squire, who's the CEO of Blackwell Adventure, on a very cold day in the Midlands, cold for me anyway, coming from the coast. So enjoy this short perspective and then we'll move on to the next bit. Great. Well, Dave, thanks very much for offering to answer a few questions about apprenticeships. Can you introduce us to your centre and what you do here?
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Blackwell Adventure, which is a children's charity based in Bromsgrove, and we run outdoor centres and activities for kids from Birmingham and the West Midlands.
Fabulous. Yeah, great. Thanks very much. And you've chosen to use apprenticeships for staff development here. So what everybody's interested in mainly is why you chose to use apprenticeships and how the programs are working.
Yeah, I've always been a massive believer in apprenticeships. I think that they are a great tool to recruit and train staff and also put something back for the industry. We use them here. We recruit 6 apprentices We have a team of about 30 instructional staff. They do a year with us, which is great because we also have seasonal staff. So they're a consistent team of people. We can train them up to be the instructors we want them to be. They can do work for us the following year in an instructional role, and then from that point on, they're free to take their experiences and their knowledge and behaviours that they've gained and go out into the wider marketplace and see what they want to do, or develop here at Blackwell.
Yeah, brilliant. And in your experience, how many apprentices stay here as instructors or remain in the sector as instructors after apprenticeships?
It's hard to measure, but I think from our perspective, our instructors definitely do the next year. And I've got success stories and I count them as success stories of them moving on and going to help manage climbing walls, for example, local climbing walls, or work in schools afterwards doing some outdoor ed stuff. So we've got really nice stories of people moving on and doing other stuff, and I think that's really important because experience in the sector, if you want to work in the sector, experience in the sector is really important, and varied experience, not just of one setting and one context. And I think that's important for them. I know the apprenticeship does that because they also meet up with other apprentices from other organisations for training courses and things like that, and that really helps them get a little network and understanding of the broader context.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it's invaluable, isn't it? Thanks. Is it cost effective to run an apprenticeship scheme?
Yeah, absolutely. It is cost effective. You know, we house our apprentices here, so we pay the apprenticeship wage for them during their apprenticeship part, but we offer them free accommodation, so it works for us and it works for them. As soon as they finish their apprenticeship, or after 12 months, they go on to a proper instructor wage. You know, and I know other organisations might do things slightly different, but for us it works really well, and it's a really good mix for getting a staff team which has some new people in. So we have returning seasonal staff, we have permanent staff, and we also have voluntary staff. So it's part of our employee mix, and we wouldn't be able to operate without them. So that's a key thing.
Brilliant. So that level 2 at the moment in the sector, we don't have a level 2 that's outdoor specific, do we?
No.
But we've got the level 2 community activator coach, which is the one that you're talking about. I'm interested in how that community activator coach and the kind of outreach that it encourages, does that have any benefits for the business?
It does. In our setting, as a charity, you know, we work with loads of different groups, and we've had a real push for some outreach work into BAME communities in south of Birmingham. And in the specific apprentice that had done that, her project was to work with our outreach coordinator and deliver some community activity, you know, on our site. Which worked brilliantly. It worked for us, it worked for the people involved, and it worked for our outreach coordinator. So it was a really valuable piece of work.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks.
Thanks to Dave for that interview. Very useful, interesting perspective. Let's move on to the level 3 and level 5 apprenticeship standards. I'm just going to share my screen, get the PowerPoint back up. Here we go. As I mentioned earlier, Chloe and Pete will give a lot more detail about the core programme and the skill development package that goes along with the way we deliver these standards. But the headlines are these. The level 3 is for those new to using outdoor learning as a tool for personal development with individuals and groups. And that's a key definition. So it's about being an outdoor activity instructor and not being an outdoor activist, which is crucial. So that definition of outdoor learning as a purposeful and planned work in the outdoors is an important one here. So that's what this is about. Prior experience wise, individuals who come to this apprenticeship can have experience, of course, of outdoor activities, and that's helpful. They can have experience of working with groups, perhaps in a youth work or teaching assistant capacity, but they don't have experience yet to run a safe and enjoyable session of outdoor learning unsupported, and that's what this apprenticeship journey is about. Entry requirements are straightforward, they're just there. Individuals must show that they haven't done this apprenticeship before. They must show that they don't have a qualification at level 3 or above that conflicts with this, and there are very few. But there's no no need for those who've already got a higher education qualification to think that they're not eligible, because you will be. And there's no age limit, as there used to be on apprenticeships. So these aren't just for young people. Many of our apprentices now come from within the workplace already and are using an apprenticeship standard as a professional development tool from a position of employment. So it really is a very open opportunity to engage with the sector. The key thing, as I've written there, is that the individual concerned is absolutely committed to and believes in outdoor learning for all the reasons that we know. That commitment is essential, as we know, in our sector, and it's essential to this study as well. Time-wise, usefully, it isn't just a 12-month training period, it's 12 months and a week. So thanks to the Institute for Apprenticeships for that one. But 13 months should get an individual to what we call gateway, which is the point where the employer and the apprentice and the training provider agree that that individual is ready for endpoint assessment. And then endpoint assessment occurs after that. So we say 13 to 15 months, generally speaking. On to the level 5. This is almost brand new, approved for delivery in February this year. A higher level, level 5, is foundation level study, and really it's for those who want to move into an occupational or population specialism. So a quick word about that. An occupational specialism might be something like a higher level activity delivery in a particular discipline. It may be moving into a particular role within an organisation in terms of programming outdoor learning, or something similar to that. So these are specialisms that are defined by the nature of the work. And then we have population specialisms defined by the nature of the population that we're working with. So that could, for example, be primary school specific. It could be working with those with disabilities. It could be youth work focused particularly. It could be working specifically in an urban environment, and so on. So these specialisms are many and varied, and the great thing about the standard is we're able to produce the individual learning plan for each apprentice according to that specialism, according to their setting and according to their aspirations, which is a completely personalized approach. So super exciting. Academic requirements, the best entry to a level 5 outdoor learning specialist is having the level 3 outdoor activity instructor standard already, because individuals hitting the ground running, understanding exactly what is involved in this kind of study, it takes that away from the beginning of the level 5, or equivalent qualification or experience. So those that already have experience and a level 3 qualification at least may look to move straight into this. Perfect for those that are already working in the sector and taking the next step to a specialism, as I say, or to deputy head of centre type roles, taking more responsibility with that centre. The requirements are there. It's a longer standard. It's 2 years, broadly speaking, but just over 2 years, of course, 2 years and a month. And then the process for gateway and endpoint assessment means that generally we need to look at a year and 3 months, a year and 4 months or so, sensibly in terms of contracts for the completion of this standard. Here to give us some more detail on the core programme is our lead tutor, Chloe Kinsella.
Hello everybody, my name's Chloe and I'm the lead tutor for Channel Training. I'm going to be talking to you today about our programmes that we deliver on the ground and what they look like for our centres. So all of our programmes that we deliver are just bespoke. Although we still meet the standard of the outdoor activity instructor and outdoor learning specialist, we ensure that the programme we deliver best suits the centres we're working with, the activities they deliver and the groups that they have coming into their centre. In order to do that, we get to know you as a centre individually, and you're assigned a nominated tutor. That tutor works with you throughout the year to ensure that you're getting the best programme possible and your apprentices getting the most support they can. Part of that support is 5 face-to-face visits for our level 3s, where we come in to watch them delivering activity sessions and giving them feedback on how to develop their session. So we're looking for every learner to be able to deliver a safe and fun session where their participants are learning and developing. However, we push them even further and try to get them to think about how they differentiate their sessions to meet all participant needs. In terms of our level 5 programme, we come and watch them not only do that and work towards both short-term and long-term goals with their participants, but also look at the additional stuff that goes alongside for higher level members of staff like leads, chiefs, managers. And in order to do that, we look at things like the staff training they deliver, the morning briefings they give to their staff. Within these visits, we also use them as an opportunity to develop theoretical knowledge and behaviours that we should see within instructors and managers. So we talk to them about some of the core content that sits behind outdoor learning within any activity. We also work with them online in between these 5 visits. So all of our learners have contact on a regular basis and they have one-to-one lessons. So we'll meet with them online and work with them on their portfolio tasks in whichever way they need and with whatever suits them. Alongside this, they also have the opportunity to come to our value-added webinars. These are webinars where we talk about generalised concepts, really key concepts that are important to our learners, whether that be good structure of a session, whether that be differentiation, session planning, or even giving them ideas of how they can engage groups where they're becoming disengaged, or potentially they need a 5-minute filler in between activity swap over or anything like that. So those value-added webinars happen once a month. However, we're aware of the fact that that doesn't necessarily suit when they're available. We don't do day release to college or anything like that because we recognise that's extremely difficult for an apprentice in a centre. And what we don't want them to do is miss out on a really valuable experience in centre because they're away with us at a different building. But what we do set up is opportunities for us to have lessons, come into centre and work with them, or even watch back the value-added webinars at a time that suits them and their centre. This means that they're getting the most from us, but also not missing out on any of those super valuable experiences they get within their centres. We also do bi-monthly reviews for all of our learners. So those bi-monthly reviews are focused around giving them feedback on their skills, knowledge and behaviours. So both apprenticeships, the aim is to develop skills, knowledge and behaviours related to being a great instructor or manager within the outdoors. So the feedback we give very much orientates around those and how we develop a portfolio that shows that. Once we've done our feedback as their nominated tutor, it goes across to them to give feedback on how they think they're going. That means that learners get an opportunity to express what they think they're doing really well or what they want to work on next, or potentially even a specific element of their learning that they think they may need more support on going forward. It then goes to their mentor or employer, who gives feedback on how they think they're getting in the workplace and key areas that they want them to keep focusing on within potentially their session delivery or interaction with customers or whatever that may be. Obviously, each of those reviews is specific to not only the learner, but the setting they're in. So none of our learners necessarily receive the same feedback or the same order of development as any other centre, because it's specific to not only what they deliver, as I said before, but also the season that they start in. So our apprentices start throughout the year at different months, and the programme that they go through is obviously dependent on how busy the centre is at that point in the year. But one thing we can guarantee is that learners receive 20% off the job training. That's 20% of their time in work and learning to do their job. That may be portfolio time where they're working to develop their evidence of the work they've been doing. It might be shadowing. So a key part of our apprentices training is their shadowing. And that's time in work, watching others deliver and learning, picking up those little tips to make their sessions the best they can. Also looking at things like how that instructor interacts, where the equipment is, how they set up. Alongside that, that can also include activity training. So whether that be that the participants learning to kayak or canoe, whether that be they're learning to be a SUP instructor within the centre and do an in-house sign-off, all of those things are incorporated, as well as any courses they attend. Now, obviously, that's a key thing people want to hear about. What skills does the apprentice develop, and how do we support with that? And Pete will tell you about that really shortly. I'm sure that's the bit everyone wants to hear about. But before I pass over to Pete, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about how the level 3 and the level 5 differ. So the level 3 is an entry-level qualification into the outdoors, introducing people to instructing at its rawest form. So how do we instruct? What do we need to include within a session? And how do we give the best session to our groups to ensure they come away with the best experience? Our level 5s take that one step further, and they not only look at the delivery on the ground, but they look at the back scene that happens before and after a group come in. So they look at planning and designing programs, developing new programs for their centres, as well as doing things like reviewing the risk assessments in winter, or liaising with the group to ensure that the program is designed in a way they want. As I said earlier, it also includes things like training their staff in the winter months, or giving the morning briefings before a group start. And then towards the end of that process, they also look at how we use feedback from our groups to develop the provision we offer. Hopefully that's given you a little bit of an insight into our level 3 and our level 5 programme. I'm sure people have got loads of questions, so feel free to pop them in the chat, and I will answer them as we carry on with the presentation. But I'll pass over to Pete now, our lead tutor, who's going to talk to you about the skills package. Thanks very much.
My name's Pete Organ. I'm an apprenticeship tutor and lead trainer for Channel Training. I'm going to talk a bit about the skills element of an apprenticeship. So the skills element is all about an individual, so an apprenticeship learner in this instance, developing their own personal ability to achieve either a qualification or achieve the ability to deliver an activity session. These are a key part of any apprenticeship, but particularly important for the outdoor activity instructor apprenticeship, because we know that our industry is quite driven by NGB qualifications, so nationally recognised qualifications, and quite often apprentices need support and development to be ready to take on the next level of qualification. The way we approach that here at Channel Training is that we offer our apprentices and our employers a selection of courses. These courses are made up of NGB courses, so courses such as the British Canoeing Paddle Sport Instructor course, right the way through to learning beyond the classroom and other nationally recognised qualifications such as the Lowland Walk Leader. But those other courses are also supplemented by what we refer to as skill development courses. These are opportunities for people to just practice and learn and be coached and mentored by us as tutors to get better in their chosen field or their area of interest or operational need. The skills element is quite a tricky thing to balance because it's about the individual themselves, so the learner, the apprenticeship learner, getting the development that they need, but it's also about what they're going to need to be able to do their job at their centre within their operation. So right from the very beginning of this process, we involve the employer. So we ask the employer and the learner to think about what they're going to need to be able to do their job. And then they work with their apprenticeship tutor to map out which qualifications and which development opportunities they're going to need to include in their apprenticeship. As part of that process, they create their individual learning plan. And within that, they map out their whole 12 months of their apprenticeship and think about what courses are going to be particularly useful to them at which point in their apprenticeship. We offer our apprentices 4 of these development opportunities, and we refer to these as the skills package. And within the skills package, we have a combination of those NGB qualifications as well as those skill development opportunities where they spend a period of time with their tutors and or their workplace mentors to develop those skills that they need. It is very much a learner-centered approach. It is about the learner getting the qualifications and development that they need to be able to do their job. As part of this process, we often bring groups of learners together so that they can all learn as part of a group. This community of practice is particularly important because it allows learners to think about things in ways that they might not normally get exposed to at their centre in their operation. You know, they can share ideas, they can bounce off of each other and network in a way that they just normally wouldn't be able to do because of the way that they operate at their centre. It's a really good opportunity for learners to meet new people, to find out about different ways of working, and really just to enjoy the learning process as well. I Ultimately, what this is about the learners getting the development that they need. Often these courses are delivered at their centre or in an environment that's similar to their centre. And where we need to, we often deliver these courses outside the normal operating sort of area and locations by taking them further afield into less familiar environments so that they can stretch and far exceed what they would normally be exposed to. This is a great way for people to learn, and we recognise the importance of people being exposed to different environments. As a bit of an example of the kind of things that often get included in someone's apprenticeship package, we will often start the kind of skills element of training with a qualification such as the level 3 outdoor first aid qualification. This is often carried out quite early on in someone's apprenticeship because it's often a crucial piece of knowledge and skill and ability that a learner will need to be able to then be deployed on the ground as an instructor. Normally, if someone is taking a paddle sport route as an example, then often they will start by having some form of workplace training with their workplace mentors and or other experienced staff at their centre in preparation for them to go on to take on the next level of qualification. Their step in the door is often the paddle sports safety and rescue course, which we will be delivering shortly. This gives them the skills that they need to be able to keep themselves and their peers safe whilst they're learning to then become instructors as well. We often have a consolidation period between that level of training and then going on to do their paddle sport instructor. And this is often a good place for them to have exposure to a skill development course. So those skill development courses are where we go in as tutors and spend some time on the ground with the learners and help them to develop ready to progress on to the paddle sport instructor course. Once they've gone through the paddle sport instructor course, they're then in a position where often they're deployed on the ground as an instructor, often working alongside more experienced members of staff to understand and learn how to deliver the sessions before they are then left to deliver them independently and use all of the skills and knowledge that they've learned as part of the training. In summary, the skills element of an apprenticeship is all about a learner getting the qualifications and development that they need to be able to do their job at their centre, working with both the employer, the mentor, and the tutor to gain the qualifications that they're aspiring to. It's all about learner-centred approach and getting the qualifications they need.
Thanks to Chloe and Pete for those elements about the core program and the skills development package there. That's really cool. Next up, we've got a short interview with Emma Kendall, who was an apprentice with the Field Studies Council. She's going to provide an apprentice perspective for us. Just a reminder that please engage, if you haven't done so already, with the chat to ask us questions and make comments. With a pre-recorded presentation like this, we're all here at the keyboard waiting to respond to those comments, so we'd be delighted to have your input. Do go ahead. Thanks very much. Thanks for joining us, Emma. Could you start by a little introduction? Tell us who you are, what your role was, and where you were working.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Emma. I have recently just finished my apprenticeship with the FSC in combination with channel training. So literally finished at end of last year, doing the level 3 outdoor activity instructor across a couple of sites with the FSC.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. And how did that role come about? How did you move into that role?
So I, after uni, kind of did a fair bit of volunteering through environmental education, and then ended up in a slightly different kind of career path. I really wanted to get back to that side of things. So I've had environmental jobs alerts for quite some time and saw the apprenticeship and kind of jumped at the opportunity to not only kind of start heading down that career path, but also kind of learning through that apprenticeship aspect, gaining additional qualifications that could then kind of springboard me elsewhere. So did the online kind of applications and things, did an interview and ended up doing the apprenticeship, and now a full-time tutor off the back of it as well. So all successful. That's that path.
Great. Okay, thanks. Do you think Do you think you would have got into the sector or got that role if it hadn't been for the apprenticeship route?
It's one of those. I had always kept my eyes open for something that I wanted to do, so kind of that environmental education or at least outdoor activities in some sort. I have a geography degree, so I thought that would be perfect, had some experience. But the things I was applying for, it was kind of the classic, oh, you don't have enough experience, or you don't quite have this and other people do. So I had attempted to get back to it before and kind of struggled, to be honest. So I think the apprenticeship was the perfect opportunity to kind of that combination of using my degree again, but also learning some of those skills that now mean I could go into teaching, I could go into the kind of more activity-based outdoor learning. It's given me the kind of opportunity to not only grow thus far, but then also kind of develop kind of future needs. So not necessarily would I've got into it this quickly, that's for sure. It's been a great opportunity.
Yeah, great, cool. All right, thank you for that. So in your year of training, how did the program work? Sort of generally, that's a big question, isn't it? But generally speaking, how did the program sort of mesh in with your day-to-day employment?
So started off with a few kind of training days with the other apprentices and my channel training kind of assessors and tutors. So started off doing those kind of qualifications and how we'd be able to focus ourselves for the year. We'd then go back to our centres. So I started at Juniper Hall in Box Hill and started off by pretty much observing those who are already in the kind of job here. Did those kind of observations, we're learning from those. Then in combination with our kind of portfolio work through channel training on using their software OneFile and being able to kind of build understanding of why tutors are doing certain things, how I can use those in my own teaching, kind of build on that. And then again, we kind of meet through the year with not only the other apprentices, but again, channel training, so that having that support throughout the year and kind of building on those foundations throughout the year and doing kind of different observations, having channel training observe me and give me kind of feedback on how to keep building as a tutor, and then kind of finishing off with that final observation from the kind of external assessor to kind of really get that final qualification kind of booked off. So combination of so many different aspects, but that continued kind of support throughout the year to kind of really get things moving and get everything going in the right direction.
Yeah, great stuff. And what about training courses? Did you have the opportunity to interact with apprentices from other sites or whatever? How did that work?
Yeah, so with the Field Studies Council, it was great. We had 10 of us from the off. So every time we met up, it would usually be in a different location or a different centre. So all 10 of us would come together and be doing the training. I would say it's probably one of the best outcomes of doing the apprenticeship, is having that kind of group of us all together. We obviously had a WhatsApp chat, could ask each other questions, and just generally keep in touch. Even though we've now finished, that WhatsApp chat is still active. We are hoping to kind of meet up now we've finished, kind of congratulate and have a kind of last hurrah kind of thing. But again, that kind of connection, that networking, even if this isn't necessarily something they may continue long term, having those connections with each other, it might be that, an opportunity comes up, we pass it on and it might lead someone else down a different channel. So that networking has been really beneficial, that's for sure. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay, thanks. So final question, if you were speaking to a bunch of young people who were considering apprenticeships or not, what would you say to them?
I'd say 100%. There are apprenticeships out there for so many different things. Whether it's kind of the outdoor side of things or a whole host of different kind of industries, I think it's a great way that you can kind of build your skills, meet new people. There's always that support, which I don't think you necessarily get with some of the kind of alternative options. And it means in most cases, like with myself, I've been able to do the apprenticeship while actually doing the full-time job as well. So I've kind of had that aspect of learning on the job, but also still building the knowledge and kind of foundation of qualifications. So kind of going hand in hand just makes kind of brings me out at the end in a much more kind of strong position kind of for the future. So 100% look into them, see what you can find that's relevant, and yeah, it's a great thing to enjoy as well, that's for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, well, thank you very much. Thanks very much for joining us, Emma. See you again soon.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks very much to Emma for that. Much appreciated, Emma. Next up, we have an employer perspective from Sam Waits, who manages the Mountbatten Centre in Plymouth. Sam, thanks for joining us on this webinar. Could you start by introducing yourself and your organisation?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sam, and I'm the Water Sports and Activities Manager for the Mountbatten Centre in Plymouth. We're a charitable multi-activity centre offering a range of land and water-based activities on using on an inclusive footing and using Plymouth Sound and the wider areas of Dartmoor and the Plymouth countryside to offer a real wide range of adventurous activities. And yeah, we're a fantastic centre.
Yeah, cool. Thanks very much. And you've done apprenticeships for quite a long time now. So can I just ask why you chose apprenticeships as a staff development tool at your centre?
So, I mean, firstly, we're a really youth-orientated organisation. Now, that won't really come as a surprise to a lot of the other activity centres that might be on this call or webinar or across the country. But we do really take a lot of pride in developing young people. And I think that's just so crucial. Having come from a similar background to myself that didn't struggled academically, I just think that activity centres, they should have that as a key focus. As an aside from that, I think the real advantages that an activity centre can have, it gives us the opportunity to mould and develop a team, as opposed to using seasonal instructors that might only be with you for sort of 2 or 3 months, or freelancers that might drop in, for a day here, a day there. That's not to say we don't need seasonal instructors or freelancers. Absolutely, there'll always be a place for them, but having apprentices gives us that really opportunity to develop, to mould, and using the frameworks and working with channel training means we can get some really good employees that really benefit what we do as an organisation.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much. And how does the program, the apprenticeship program, specifically the level 3 outdoor activity instructor, I guess, how does that work for your organisation as an employer?
I mean, I think we've worked for a lot of different accreditations and different schemes of work and qualifications, and now this really does actually fit what we're looking to do, and the work that Channel Training have done to align the qualification with National Governing Body Awards is obviously fantastic. That means we can really accredit what our apprentices do, and that works really well. The scheme does fit with our industry, our sector, the way in which we can structure or front load a lot of the learning into the quiet off season, and then so that our apprentice instructors are ready to go for kind of April, May. They can hit the ground running, and then kind of, if I should have backtracked there, but if they start in sort of September generally, and then they'll be looking to do their endpoint assessment in September, October. That works really well for us.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thanks. You kind of alluded there to apprenticeships gone by, and you were familiar with the activity leadership and outdoor programs, NVQ based frameworks that we used to have. How do you feel that these new standards fit the needs in the sector compared to the old world, if you like?
The qualifications that I would have been delivering maybe sort of 15 or so years ago now, they very much felt like they were borrowed from local sports college. That it was kind of like, right, we're teaching some personal trainers, we're working in a gym. Now let's go and see the sailing centre and we'll bolt on their MVQ level 2 activity leadership. And it didn't really fit for purpose. And it didn't fit for purpose in terms of they would be delivering, maybe a gym session for 20 minutes. Okay, that worked absolutely fine. Then try transposing that to a kayaking session of 2 hours or a sailing session of a half day. And the qualifications and everything else that goes on behind it, I think, is much more sector specific now, thanks to the good work of Channel Training, the IOL, and the other organisations that may well be on this call. I think it's a lot more specific to what and focused to what we need.
Yeah, thanks. No, we definitely think so. Yeah. Do you think is it cost effective as an employer to use apprenticeships to develop staff?
Yes, of course, there are there are financial benefits from using apprentices, and that's everything that every activity centre can be looking at now. But I think it's important to look beyond just the rate of pay and look at what else they can bring to you and the longer term benefits they can have to your organisation.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks. And how many of your apprentices either stay with you and move into instructor roles, full time or part time, or move on to instructor roles in the sector? Do you think?
Yeah, so really good question. I mean, we've been really fortunate thanks to some opportunities with the local authority and with some other funding partners. We've been able to retain 3 out of the 6 apprentices we had last year to go on to an annualised hours contract. So they stayed with us for so they finished in kind of November. They're then going to come back in February, and obviously their hours will increase, and that's fantastic. So that's 3 of our members of staff, and then we've had other apprentices that have come. They may have done an apprenticeship with us, and they've gone away and gone to university, and they then come back and carried on doing summers at the centre, and that works really, really well. Also, we've had other apprentices that have carried on doing outdoor education. This is sort of pre-COVID and pre-Brexit, but they've gone to Europe and they've gone to Australia, which is fantastic. We've got others that joined the blue light services who work for the police and the paramedic. And I think really one of the best ones we've had is where we've had young people that have gone on to work as youth workers, and kind of the experience that they've had on the apprenticeship, although they're not working within outdoor education directly, what we've done in terms of their confidence, their self-esteem, how they're working as a team, and how they can communicate, and how they can actually be a really effective bridge between a young person. There might be a young person that is struggling, they're not in education or employment, and they can actually be a really effective catalyst for that young person through what they've done in this apprenticeship. So even if they're not going to look at outdoor education as a full-time career, I still think it has so much value for personal development.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. No, that's great comment. We find that too. A lot of apprentices move into youth work and teaching, and yeah, it's such a joy to see.
Yeah.
And the great thing about the outdoors, of course, is it's always here, isn't it? So they also come back the other way. A few years in youth work, a few years in teaching, and then that love of the outdoors doesn't change anywhere, does it? And in the further down in their journey, they start bringing groups back to the centres that they worked at as apprentices. We're long enough in the tooth to see that happening right now. So it's really cool. Okay, cool, thanks. So overall then, Sam, just sort of in conclusion, if I had to press you for a comment about what value apprenticeships bring to an outdoor learning organisation, what do you think the main headlines would be?
I think you'll have a motivated, infused, and experienced for their years at the coalface staff team, and that you can pack so much into your delivery and your training that you give them. And by working with people like Channel Training, you can have a team that's going to be young, that's going to be engaged, that can give those really life-affirming, positive outdoor experiences by developing over the long term, rather than just having a seasonal instructor team that just come in for that summer. You can have people that have got that enthusiasm to learn and to develop themselves. So yeah, highly recommended.
Many thanks to Sam for that excellent employer perspective. We're coming to the end of our pre-recorded session. I've hoped that by now many of you have engaged with the comments and asked questions through the chat function. So we've had a good dialogue. There's a short summary screen at the end of the PowerPoint, and really the points there should have essentially have been covered. As I said right back at the start, we haven't gone through all the nitty-gritty small print stuff, but these are the headlines, and you've heard from several different people about how apprenticeships actually work on the ground, and that's the key thing. They do work on the ground with a good quality training provider, and really that third leg of the stool between you and your staff member, apprentice, and us really does work very, very well. So we were delighted to answer any questions outside of this. It's easy to get in touch with Channel Training, of course, through all the normal media, and just email us directly and talk to us through the website and social media. We'd be delighted to hear from you. We'll be around through the rest of this conference. We have a stand, a virtual stand, and you can come visit us there and ask questions. And we'll also be hosting a roundtable discussion, so that's another way of engaging and talking about this fascinating subject. So thanks very much from us, and hopefully we will see you soon.